We're gonna get right into it. You ready? We got a Rabbi Bar Chana story. You excited? It's a good way to go out, no? Rabbi Bar Chana? This is the way. Baruch Hashem, how are you? מה קורה?
סיפורים שלו זה צריך להבין, אם לא מבינים זה דברים שלו שציפור אכל את העולם, אבל יש דברים בפנים עמוק מאוד דברים.
כן.
באנגלית בבקשה.
No, a little bit. כן. הבנתי.
מה יבוא משיח, מה ידבר? יידיש ידבר איתו, מה ידבר איתו?
כן.
עברית.
כן, נכון. אבל אני למד עכשיו. כן. Happy birthday. Beautiful. Okay. Happy birthday. Okay, ready? Amar Rabbi Bar Chana. Rabbi Bar Chana said, Zimna chadava azlinan mibinbara. One time, I was traveling in the desert. V'chazinan hanei avazei. And I saw these geese. I saw a flock of geese. Dishmitin gedfaihu mishamnaihu. And they were so fat that their plumes fell off. Guys, got with me so far? There's Rabbi Bar Chana. Yeah, he's going in the desert, normative, basic weekend over here. Out with the boys. You see these fat geese. They're so fat that their feathers fell off. V'aminalahu. I asked them, Eat li minaychu chuka la'amadati. Am I going to have a piece of you in Olam Haba?
You could have them now. Catch one.
Chadedalya li atma. One lifted a foot towards me. V'chadedalya li gadfa. And one lifted his wing. Ki atai lakame de Rabbi Elazar. When I came before Rabbi Elazar, Amarli, he said to me, Atidin, in the future, Yamota Mashiach, Yisrael yitena lehem et adin. The Jewish people's judgment is going to be on these geese's account. Okay. Baba Batra, 73b. Again, very quickly, quick chazara for the Chabadniks over here. You ready? Rabbi Bar Chana recounted. One time we were traveling in the desert and we saw these geese. They were so fat and their plumes fell off. Feathers. Rivers of oiling were flowing beneath them. I forgot that point. Rivers of oiling were flowing beneath these geese. So I asked them, oil. Yeah. Rivers of oil are flowing beneath them. So I asked them, obviously, am I going to taste you in Olam Haba? Am I going to have a piece of you? One of them lifted his hand, his foot. The other one lifted his wing. And I came before Rabbi Elazar, and he said to me, it's in the future, on these geese's account, or it's going to be the Jewish people's judgment. Does anybody want to explain this story based on what we've learned so far in Torah 6? Okay, quick recap. This is the funnest part of the lessons. You ready? Quick recap. Rabbi Nachman says like this. There is one short test that a person has done Teshuva, that a person has, so to speak, elevated from his former state and is now decided, I really want to be close to Hashem. I want to be close to Hashem. I want to move beyond the darkness of my life. I want to move beyond my past experiences, my challenges. I want to elevate and I want to experience something beautiful. It's called Teshuva, returning back to your source, returning back to who you are. Rabbi Nachman says, what's the surest sign you're ready to do it? If you could hear yourself being embarrassed and you don't respond. You don't say anything. Why? Rabbi Nachman says there's two types of honor in the world. There's kavod malachim, there's kavod of kings, there's honor of kings, famous people, celebrities, A-listers. And there's kavod elokim, there's kavod of God. There's kavod of godliness. There's kavod of the oneness of Hashem. And he says something very interesting. He says, once the honor is of people and people are physical, what's the nature of anything that's physical and limited? It's bound to be investigated. What's the reason why a person is constantly being questioned by everyone around them? The answer is because there's a shtickle, at least a shtickle, maybe a lot more than a shtickle, but there's a little bit of a desire that they want other people should honor them. Pretty basic. But once you get to the point that you don't want any honor at all, and any honor you get, you give back to the source of kavod. Then Rabbi Nachman says you achieve kavod elokim, and then nobody has a question on you, because nobody can have a question on Hashem, because he's not investigatable. And that wasn't a real word, but you can't investigate it. He's not investigable. That's also not a real word. Okay? Then we said that for a person to really do teshuva, though, which is very difficult, to get to the point that you're able to hear yourself and not respond, you have to become baki, expert at running and returning. Everything in life is on a spectrum. Yeah. Sometimes you're a man, sometimes you're a woman. Not in the Bukharian community, you'd be surprised at how much it's in flux.
What do you know that I don't know?
Leave Queens, you'll see. Sometimes you feel good. Sometimes you feel good. Sometimes you feel bad. Sometimes you feel happy. Sometimes you feel sad. Sometimes you feel excited. Sometimes you feel Yeah? This is normal. This is called running and returning. Rabbi Nachman says, an expert at running and returning knows which one's which, and he knows how to adjust. Like just lahavdil, like a sports athlete. Sometimes, for instance, they're playing zone defense, and in zone defense, it's not man-to-man. So I have to be very patient. I need to wait for people to become uncovered. But it takes much more patience, but then you can find holes every time. But if you play man-to-man defense, so then you can get a quick play, a big break. You don't have to be as patient, but they could be more aggressive on defense. There could be big challenges that come with that as well. Okay. Each one of these has their challenges. Each one of them has their positives. To be baki in running means that when I feel good, what do I do with that good feeling? I run after Hashem. I learn, I pray, I do hipo to do it. I hang out with my friends. We talk about how to get closer and to elevate spiritually. Yeah. We go to Uman for Rosh Hashanah. We go to the mikveh. Yeah. So we're running. But then, as all of us know, there are many times, even more than those times, when we feel the opposite, when we feel low, when we feel lack of energy, when we feel lack of enthusiasm, feel lack of excitement. And what do we need to do then? Rabbi Nachman says, hold on. Hold on. Just hold on. Because you're not going to be able to run. And if you do not hold on with all your might, you're going to get knocked backwards many times over to the extent that you may not be able to move forward again. So the main function when the time of return is that you're just able to hold on until it's time to run again. One aspect I'm learning, the other aspect I'm talking. One aspect I'm active, the other aspect I learn how to be active in my being passive. But you have to become expert in both. We explain how this is all in the letter Aleph. That if you look at the lower dot of the letter Aleph, this is the concept of returning. If you look at the higher dot in the letter Aleph, you have the concept of running. And just like the Aleph, you have the lower and the upper point. So too, the truth is, if you flip the Aleph around, then the lower becomes the upper becomes the lower, And that whole paradigm still exists. It never changes. Rabbi Nachman comes to say just as well that whenever a teacher is with his student, it's a microcosm of the runner and the returner. The student takes on the concept of the returner, and the teacher is the concept of the runner. Or in ways that we can understand, basically, you have Moshe and Yoshua. You have the higher light and the lower light. You have Moshe Rabbeinu, the Tzaddik Yisod Olam, the one who has the complete revelation of godliness in the world, who has had Hasagas Elokut, he's had godly perceptions. And then you have the lower light, Yoshua ben Nun, that he is a pure vessel for that light. He doesn't have those perceptions, but he's actually the perfect student to be able to learn those perceptions. And not just to be able to learn them, but to even be in some ways better at giving it over to the general populace, because he's not as bright of a light. We see this paradigm many generations. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and his students, the Arizal, Rav Chaim Vital, Rabbi Nachman, Rav Nassim, Moshe Rabbeinu, Yoshua ben Nun. Yeah? So you see this paradigm many, many, many times over. So too, there's a Mashiach ben Yosef and there's a Mashiach ben David. It's also connected. Mordechai and Esther, very good, beautiful. Very good. One of them, their face is like the sun, that would be like Mordechai. One of them, their face is like the moon, it's like Esther. Beautiful. And this line that's in between them is like the tent. It's the ohel, it's the place of meeting, because, and this is very deep, every time that you meet with your student or a student meets with his teacher, you have to meet in a place. And that place is called the ohel. It's called the tent. But they can't meet without the space in between. Okay. Now you want to guess.
So comes up to say geese.
Geese.
They're losing feathers.
Losing feathers because they're so fat.
Because they're fat.
Because they're fat geese.
They have oil running under them.
Right, rivers of oil running under them.
They lift up their leg.
They lift up their foot and their feather.
That's the olive.
Oh,
It's the olive thinking. It looks like a goose.
looks like a goose. Interesting. What else you got? What?
It's between us and Hashem.
It's like, where are we? Six.
It's between us and probably Hashem is teaching us from a higher state and trying to bring it down to us.
Okay. And he asked him, we're going to taste you in Olam Haba. Yeah, I got that part also. In the future, the Jewish people's judgment will be on their account.
I have a crack at it.
Go ahead.
The oil running under them, oil usually represents kingship.
Okay.
Okay, I don't know if I'm off here.
Just go.
So
Go for it.
Okay, so the river of oil represents the honor of kings,
Okay.
and they lift up their leg and lift up their wing. So one of them will represent running, the other one will represent returning.
Okay.
When you lift it up, you're not in the river anymore, meaning you're not being judged.
You're not being
It's like
investigated.
You're above
Investigation.
investigation. And they're so fat that they lost their feathers.
We did a
I
Rabbi
don't
Baruch
really-
story.
I don't really think this one through that much.
They're so fat, they lost their feathers.
I don't know.
You're doing good.
I remember learning what each of those represents.
Yeah.
At some point, you would learn that.
Yeah.
So maybe they self-move feathers to lose their ego.
Okay.
Maybe they lost their feathers somewhere.
Oh, so he's saying that the losing the feathers, maybe that's like bitul and nullify my ego. Very good. And he has oil running underneath him. Nice.
Makes the separation.
Do you have any chidushim you want to try to?
I'm so supposed to.
Good to know. Okay, we're gonna go for it. You ready? He's traveling in the desert. Lechakur b'mida tova shel anava. Rabbi Baruch Chana set out to investigate this quality, this mida. It's called humility. He wanted to know more about it. He was interested in how great, how not great. What is the whole thing about humility? Who cares? What is it? Shadam nasim atzmo kamimbar ladush. What is this trait of humility? When a person considers himself like a desert that everybody should tread upon him. That he allows you to. Shakol dashin alav. Everybody is just trampling on you all the time. That's called humility according to the Torah. You allow people to do it. He saw chachamim, he saw Torah sages, he saw very wise men. This is the concept of the geese. So the geese are the wise men. Okay? So now we have one part filled in the story. These geese that Rabbi Baruch Chana saw, that had the oil running underneath them, these geese were actually Talmidei Chachamim. Like it says in Masechet Brachot, anyone who sees a goose in their dream, anyone who sees geese in their dream, yeah, no, you would love that, right? He can anticipate Chokhmah. We know that according to Kabbalah, Chokhmah is the highest of the 10 sefirot, and it represents the revelation of the light of the Ein Sof. In some ways it's like that, in some ways Chokhmah is the highest. Okay, it depends how you look at it, whether there's da'at, there's not da'at. But Chokhmah is definitely very high. And Chokhmah, no matter how you look at it, it represents the beginning of the revelation of godliness. Keter is the unknowable head. You can't know Hashem in that place. It's uninvestigatable. However, Chokhmah is the beginning of, you could understand it. So this is the reason why Chokhmah heals. According to Chassidut, Chokhmah is what heals. Also in the beginning of it. I guess you could say that, yeah. Okay. It says anyone who sees a goose in his dream, he can anticipate Chokhmah. Now, Dishmitin Gadfaihu, his feathers fell off. Pirush Rashi, notzot, that these plumes are feathers, they're notzot. Zebachinat machloket uvizionot, that the concept of notzot, of feathers, it's an emotional class for everybody, huh? These concept of feathers, yeah, everybody's emotional because of the moment. Okay. I'm delirious. Okay, no problem. Okay, you have the plumes, you have the feathers. The feathers are falling off, but the Hebrew word for feathers is nozot. Nozot is like bizionot. What does it mean their feathers fall off? It means they were getting embarrassed. The Talmidei Chachamim, these wise people, they were getting mocked, embarrassed, cursed at, made foolish, look stupid. Where do we see this? Kiyanatsu anashim, because it says about Datan and Aviram, if two men get into a fight. So the concept of getting into a fight is yunatsu. Meaning that they didn't care if people were embarrassing them or not. They were not focused on it. They weren't thinking about it. They didn't pay attention to it. It was happening and they weren't responding, and they weren't mashkichin, meaning they weren't even. It's not like that they had to stop themselves from. They didn't feel any type of way. V'shomim cherpatan, they were hearing their vilification. Ve'ena mashivim, they weren't returning anything. There was no response. And this is why, as a result of this silence, they're called sages. Meaning the way that you would think that chachamim, wise men, people who learn a lot of Torah, people who learn all day and night, people who are bookworms. The Torah says, you know who are wise people? People who know how to be silent. And we see this actually in Pirkei Avot, the one that's coming up this weekend, if you're going on the same pace as everybody. That is Sayag LaChochma, the very famous Mishnah in Pirkei Avot, that silence, Sayag LaChochma, is the gate to wisdom. Now, Kabbalistically, what's the secret here? The answer is like this. Chochma is, like you said, the second highest sphere. What's the highest sphere? Keter. And we said that what does Keter represent? Unknowable. So what would that be within the human psyche? How can I experience something that's unknowable? How can I get into that? Emunah, faith. What else? What do you have to do when you have emunah?
You have to have trust in Hashem.
Trust in Hashem. When you have trust in Hashem, how are you physically?
Relax.
Silent. So the gate to wisdom is silence, meaning that Keter is the gate to Chochmah. So silence, when you get embarrassed, meaning what you're doing is like this. This doesn't make any sense that this should be from Hashem. This is the last thing that makes sense. I could understand if all of a sudden I get a paycheck, it's from Hashem. Even a girl breaks out with me, it was for the best. It's from Hashem. But if some guy comes up to me in the middle of the street and just starts cursing me off, I'm not thinking at that moment, oh, this is for sure from Hashem. Thank you very much. Can I have another? Yeah. Nobody's doing that. Why not? Because that is the epitome of Teshuva. That you get to the point that you realize that even that person that's embarrassing you, that is the light of Hashem, the infinite good of Hashem. So now, if you know that, if you really believe that, you're connected to that reality. So for you, that's like the keter, because it's unknowable. You can't understand how that's good, but you could believe that that's good. And how would I respond to that belief that it's good? Silence. Now, once I do that, I've actually kicked into a Kabbalistic mechanism. I've kicked into keter, which is silence. And now as a result of that, what does keter give birth to? Chochmah, wisdom. I'm going to draw wisdom from that. What happens when I respond? I cut myself off from the wisdom that's possible in the situation, in the moment. You understand? Because silence is the concept of keter. Rabbi Nachman says that the most intense scream you could possibly scream is a scream that nobody hears.
How do you get to that point, man?
That you could scream and nobody hears it? Try it. Let's see. You put in the camera.
No, go. Exactly what it is.
I'm doing it right. To scream so loud that nobody hears.
Right?
It's these. Everything in the keter is not things that you can imagine. Everything that he says about the keter is not something you can imagine. Okay. So now he said like this. Because through silence you experience teshuva. This is the concept of the fence of wisdom is shtika. Sayag, it's a fence, literally, because keter is a fence. What's the fence? Between this world and the world that's unknowable. Keter is the place in which infinity meets finitude. You never had a friend named Finitude? You never had a friend like that growing up? No. Yeah. It's not highly used.
Silly college, man.
When
Of course, it's a word.
it becomes finite. Yeah, but keter is the point where you break between the barrier of like there's no point of investing. You move beyond any level of supernatural. It's just completely above. It's like the darkness around the light. Yeah, it's the darkness around the light. It's like a fence. So when I'm silent, I'm like surrounded by an orb of keter. I'm in the fence. So it's mamish a fence to wisdom. Sayag, why? V'gader saviv saviv. Because the whole concept of keter is it surrounds you. That's why it's not understandable. It's transcendent. It's makif. It's surrounding you. It's like the crown to chokhmah. It's literally like a crown. Okay, good. And this is the concept of dishmitin. What does it mean? It says in Davarim, every creditor is going to remit any debt owed him. We know that in the land of Israel, there's a concept of Shemitah, that every 7th year, you have to let go of whatever debt is owed to you. 50 years in the Shemitah, thank you. In this, no, Shemitah is on the 7th, and then Yovel's on the 50th. Yeah, the Jubilee, right. So this is the laws of Shemitah. So this is every 7th year. So every 7th year, you have to remit whatever debt is owed to you. To remit or to let go of it, like it never happened, you're not on the hook for it anymore. That's called shamot. Right. Hainu, meaning shelo yidba elbow no. Meaning that even though he owes something to you, you do not demand satisfaction. It's like being embarrassed and you do not ask for any type of validation. Somebody embarrasses you and you don't respond. It's like you're living in the world of Shemitah. Nobody owes you anything. because you're not there. Just like in Shemitah, nobody owes you anything anymore. Even if you're a multimillionaire, you have many deals that you're working with. You have people who owe you from all around the world, let's say, so to speak. Every seventh year, you're a nobody. Not that you're a nobody, you're nothing, but you're no thing. You're equal to everybody. It's beautiful. You remit all the debt. That's keter, silence. And this is what it says. V'zeh perush misham naihu, that they were so fat. Milashon, from the concept of shamanta avita, that you grew fat and gross. Meaning what? Hainu bishvil zeh shomin cherpatam, because they heard themselves being embarrassed and vilified. They ain't meshivim, they weren't responding. Ki zeh osim bishvil teshuva avatam, and because of this, they did teshuva on all of their previous errors. Kamoshe Katuv, like it says, Vishman Yeshurun, like it says Yeshurun, meaning talking about the Jewish people, they grew fat. Because the Pasuk says that in the end, before Mashiach comes, when we all do teshuva, there's 3 steps, Yeshaya says. That the heart of this people grew fat, they stopped up their ears, and their eyes sealed up. So what needs to happen? Their eyes need to be able to see, their ears need to be able to hear, and their heart needs to be able to understand or to feel. When you have these 3 levels, you've achieved teshuva. Now, Kabbalistically, we've learned that those 3 levels correspond to Chokhmah, Bina, and Da'at. That is, the eyes that see is Chokhmah, the ears that hear is Bina, and the heart that understands or knows is Da'at. No.
Isn't Bina the heart?
So sometimes Bina is the heart, but sometimes Da'at. In this context, it's the heart. Depends how you look at it. In this case, it's the ears. When it comes to the face, the human face, the eyes are Chokhmah, the ears are Bina. Da'at is the heart. Okay? So for you to do teshuva, you need to be able to see and hear yourself being embarrassed and you don't respond. That means you have Chokhmah, Bina, and Da'at. Okay? It's a very high level of teshuva. And teshuva is keter. That's the crown. So when I'm silent after hearing, seeing, and not responding, and now I'm not saying, I'm just completely silent. I'm literally silent in the inside and out. It's keter. This is real teshuva. And rivers of oil were flowing beneath them. Meaning through the silence, they merited to godly kavod, godly honor. Shehu bechinat shemen. It's the concept of oil. Like the pasuk says, "Ahavta tzedek." You loved what was right, what's good. V'tisna rasha, and you hated what is the opposite of it. Al ken meshachacha. Very good, like Avram. Al ken meshachacha. Therefore, I'm going to anoint you with oil. Just like Avraham was a king, just like David HaMelech was a king, right? And the Zohar says that what is the key to a person being able to find the Shem? The Zohar says something very interesting. Any person who's makpid on justice, that he really is looking for justice in the world, he's looking for true justice, he's going to ultimately find the Shem. The Zohar says. Okay?
So how does one?
That's what Avram did.
That's what Avram did.
Figure out what's the right thing to do.
And then the pasuk says, Melech Kavod, that the concept of honor is mixed up with the king. So therefore, like this, you love righteousness, you hate the opposite, therefore Hashem has anointed you, which is to show that oil, he's trying to show that oil is the concept of kingship. Just like every king has to be anointed with oil. So he's saying, what allows that king to be anointed with oil? Humility. That humility is the level of the keter. When he has the humility, the level that he's not responding, he now opens up the key to Chokhmah, Bina, and Da'at, which is the 3 levels of Teshuva. Then he's called the king. That's also true. In Kabbalah, usually Shem and oil has to do with Chokhmah, or some type of intellect, the Seichel. But here we're saying that's beautiful, it's true, but what's the key to the Shemin? The key is shtika, silence. Now I want to show you something unbelievable. I was reading the Gemara Masechet Brachot. We have it here in English on top. Can you check really quick? It's the first section. Yes. Yeah, the humility, that's right. You got it, number 1? beautiful. I want to show you something amazing I saw. You know, yeah, I'm going to show you in a second. If you look in the beginning in 6, it talks a lot about David HaMelech, King David. And it says something very fascinating about him. And I read this just after we did this part of the lesson, where we talked about the king. The concept of a king is that he needs to be able to be embarrassed and to be silent in the face of it. Now, all of a sudden, we have the archetype of the king. That's David HaMelech. And the Gemara is speaking about him. And it says something so fascinating. What did you say?
The thing where they're talking about when he was embarrassed and threw a thing at him, and it's quoted in Navi.
That's another thing.
Is another thing?
Yeah.
I remember I read something about that before.
That's another thing.
You're talking about Goliath and when he was fighting.
No. You guys see in a second. 1 second. I want to show you. Oh, here we go. What's the explanation of the pasuk? At midnight I arise to give thanks to you. So it says like this. Kach amar David lifnei Kadosh Baruch Hu. David HaMelech, King David said before Hashem, Lo chasid ani, I'm not a chasid. I'm not truly spiritual. I haven't achieved a certain level. Shekol malchei mizrach, because all the other kings of the east, v'marav in the west, yoshvim agudot bichodam. They all sit among their company in their kavod, in their glory. Va'ani yadai maluch lachot badam ushafir ushilya. But as for me, my hands are soiled with blood, with embryos and afterbirths. Why? Because he was also a rabbi. Kadei lataher isha levala. And it was in order to permit women to their husbands, because we know there's a concept of nida in Jewish law, that when a woman is in her menstrual cycle, she's not allowed to be with her husband. And you need the rabbi to look over and to say if she is ready to be with him or not ready to be with him. Right. So King David is saying, look at all the other kings of the world, that they're busy having their feet massaged. And I'm over here looking at cloths to make sure whether women are ready to be with their husbands or not. Not only that, listen to what he says. Kol mashani. Not only that, kol mashani, everything that I do, oseani nimlach, I first consult with mipi boshet. My teacher, mipi boshet, says, and he asks him, did I do it correctly? Did I say the right thing? Did I do this, do that? And they come out and they say, listen to this Baraita. Tana, the Baraita says, I read this, I'm like, oh my gosh, everything Rabbi Nachman says is so precise. You see it everywhere. It's unbelievable. Lo Mefishot Shemo. His name wasn't really Mefishot. Ele Ish Boshet Shemo. Rather, his name was Ish Boshet, the man of embarrassment. Velama Nikra Shemo Mefiboshet. And why was he called that? Shaya Mevayesh Panei David Bahalacha. Because he would constantly embarrass David in matters of halacha. And therefore, Levichach, since David continued to ask him to do it, so that he could know the truth, and he didn't care that he was getting embarrassed, David merited that Kilav descended from him, who was a king.
You can be asked to become embarrassed.
No, he wasn't asking to be embarrassed. He wanted to know the halacha. And this person happened to be so expert in halacha, even though David knew, but this person was expert. So as a result of that, he was constantly embarrassed in front of him and how little he knew it in comparison to him. And as a result of that, he called him my rabbi, Ishboshet, the one who embarrasses me. Okay? But if you think about it, it's unbelievable. That's how David was the king. Because his own rabbi, he was his main tormentor, Ishboshet, and he didn't care. So this is the king. This is the whole quality of honor. It comes from this. But Minalu, I said to him, "Eat li minaychu chukal de amadati." Am I going to be able to taste from you in Om Haba? Chad dalia liatma. He lifted up his feet. This is the concept of va'aret adom ragli. Very good. So you guys got this part right. This is the lower part of the aleph. This is representing the dome, the silent point of the aleph. That the lower point of the aleph represents silence. Like Hashem says that the world is my footstool, but the word for footstool, hadom raglai, the word literally is dome, meaning silent. Bechinat nakuda atachtona. This alludes to the lower point. And he also lifted up his wing to me. Zebechinat kisei. This is the concept of the throne. This is the higher point. V'lo yikanef od morecha. Like it says, your teacher will not cover himself anymore, referring to when Mashiach comes, that Hashem himself is not going to hide himself anymore. That we will see that truly he was our teacher the whole time. That even though we appointed ourselves our own rabbis, the truth was your only rabbi was Hashem the whole time. He has always been your teacher. This alludes to the upper point. This is the Nakuda El Yona. In other words, the geese showed Rabbi Bar Bachana that he had to attain these spiritual levels of the lower point and the upper point, the ability to run, the ability to return, the ability to run after Hashem, to try to elevate spiritually, and the ability to not get knocked off completely when the tide is coming.
So the only way a person can run and return is when he gets embarrassed.
And he's silent.
He's silent. He goes to Hashem, which is returning, and he speaks to Hashem.
And by the way, you should know, yes, what you're saying is true. By the way, you should know that I don't think he just means embarrassed by people. Anything in life that knocks you back, anything that hurts you. When that thing takes place and you don't respond, that's the concept of being silent.
So when he goes to speak to Hashem, he doesn't become silent because he's speaking to him. That's the way he grows.
That's the way he grows. But sometimes even in your Boda dude, you're going to see you can't talk.
So that's how he brings the spark
and you have to be able to bear that. Because what do we say? The whole entire difference between growing and being stagnant is that growing takes patience and stagnance comes with making quick decisions.
What is that?
Stagnant means I'm not moving. I'm not growing and I'm moving forward. The reason is because I'm not patient, because the only way for a person to grow is to be patient. Imagine just like basic. I have a Gemara. I open up a Gemara. I don't know how to read Aramaic. How am I ever going to learn this? So what would somebody in our generation say? So what's the point of starting? What would they have said 50 years ago? Let me just learn the first word. There was no concept of instant gratification, and they didn't have that. So they just learned the first word. And then they would learn the second word. And then a few years later, they know how to read a daf. But what do? We look at it, we're like, Mapitan, what is this? And because of that, we're not able to grow. That's it. Okay? So now he says like this. Rabbi Elazar says, Atidin Yisrael yitain aleihem et adin. In the future, they're going to bear our judgment. Meaning what? Ki Yisrael nikrayim adam. Because the Jewish people are called Adam. In the Torah, it speaks about man in many different ways. But whenever it says Adam, it's actually referring to Klal Yisrael, the Jewish people. And Hashem and the Jewish people are one. Meaning that when the Torah speaks about Adam, sometimes it's even speaking about Hashem. Because even though Adam means man, we know that there's a concept or an aspect of Hashem, which is the Shekhinah, that's one with the Jewish people. And in that sense, he's also Adam. The Yisrael shehem bechinat Adam. The Jewish people, they're called Adam. Yeshvu al kisei. And they will sit on the throne. Kamosh katuv, like it says, Val kisei damut kamari Adam. Upon the semblance of the throne, there was a form resembling Adam, a man. The Yisrael yitenu din lechol bayolam. Then the Jews will provide judgment for all the world's inhabitants. Hayinu hem yishpatu ba'atzman kol adinin. Meaning that they alone are going to judge all judgments. That the Jewish people are the ones who are going to be judging all judgments. Meaning that in the days of Mashiach, we will no longer be oppressed. We will no longer be subjugated. Not by people, not by the world, not by our desires, not by anything at all. We will become masters and not slaves. We won't be subjugated. We won't be enslaved. Because the world will know the truth. And then we're going to be, so to speak, sitting on the throne, the kisei. Okay? But how did all of that come? How did we get to sit on the kisei in the days of Mashiach? We had to first experience galut. And how did you get through the galut? Shtika, silence. How do you get through the Holocaust? Once you start to question it, you're off. You're done. But if you could be silent, somehow you can get closer to Hashem. So this is what we're learning right here. Okay?
It's the ultimate knowledge. It's the ultimate imuna.
That's what he's saying.
Yeah,
It's the ultimate. That's exactly. It's the ultimate amuna. It's the ultimate teshuva.
And there was also a story in Ta'anit. There was a rabbi there who lived a very long life. His students asked him, "What did you do? What was your secret?" They gave a whole different, a ton of different episodes. One of the things that he said, "I never asked why." But when you ask why, God tells you, "You want to know? Come, I'll tell you." Right, so to speak. That's why he loved for a long time. But that really shows you the ultimate imunah. So
Sure, 100%. Okay, so this is what we're saying here. Silence is the key to teshuva. Teshuva and silence are the key to wisdom. Wisdom is the key to growth. Wisdom is the key to healing. Wisdom is the key to joy. Yeah. And then you're close to Hashem. And this all finds itself within the student-teacher relationship. That is, that Moshe, or your upper light, you're silent by him. Meaning that you're not questioning, you're looking to receive. Why did Yoshua receive so much from Moshe? Because he was just like a sponge. He was a sponge. He was looking to absorb. He wasn't looking to expel. And as a result of that, he was able to absorb a lot. But if you're trying to do both, then you become limited. That's why Rav Natan was able to get the most from Rabbi Nachman. Because he said, what's a lot in the face of everything? It's nothing. Yeah. So he didn't make himself a Rav. He made himself a Rav. He got Rabbi Nachman. Okay? So this is what we're saying. Let me see what time it is. It's not. I think what we're going to do is, if you're okay with it, Thursday night, I think we should do the last lesson. It's okay? Can you do it? It's okay? Thursday night, you come.
Aren't you busy?
I'm busy, but I want to be here for you guys. And I want to finish the lesson. And it's gonna be very rushed if I do it right now. It's 10 o'clock. Finish it? Thursday?
Nah, Thursday.
Thursday.
We'll be patient. Silent.
Okay. Technically. Okay, you'll wait?
Yeah.
Okay, okay, good. Does anybody have any questions from today's lesson?
So, like I was explaining to you last time, and I didn't get it myself.
Yes.
But when a person runs to Shem, he mends himself. But when he goes back, he breaks himself. I had this during Shabbat, but I didn't understand really. And then something clicked.
You had this during your Iboda dude?
No, I was reading something during Shabbat. It was the Baba Sali's grandfather, Yaakov. Yeah, I was reading his commentary, and I was reading through it, and he's saying about how a person is supposed to have a moon in Hashem,
Right.
and how he's supposed to not always run after money.
Yeah.
And then how he's supposed to also have to run and return. So kind of, I got it a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I also got it that
I'm going to give you just like a
This
practical
and that.
example, okay? I've given this example in the
Practical.
past, but in a different
Yeah.
context.
Yeah.
But I think that this is a very good example. I remember one time, please, this is private, okay? Everybody online. It's private. I got into a very, very, very bad fight with my wife a few years ago. Yeah. You guys don't know anything about this. Nobody fights with their wives over here. My guys are A-listers in Shalom Bayit. But it was a very bad one. You know, sometimes actually it's a weird thing. You could get so good at not fighting, but then when you do fight, it's like a blow. Yeah, like something. Yeah. It's something horrible. Anyway, it was like a nightmarish fight, and it happened out of nowhere, and it escalated like crazy. And my wife is Sephardic, and she's very tough, and I'm very soft.
She went for the
Yeah.
knife.
Yeah. And she's okay, like going to sleep after it, meaning like she could have the fight with me, and then like, okay, I'm going to sleep. I don't want to talk anymore. I'm done. And I need to like work it out. Well, we gotta work it out, you know. I can't sleep because I have all this anxiety, but you know. So usually I will keep fighting with her until we come to some kind of consensus. But I don't know if I was learning this Torah or I was internalizing things like this Torah, because you're going to see a lot of this type of stuff with Rabbi Nachman. But instead of me fighting back, so to speak, I just said goodnight and I sat down in my chair. And instead of speaking like I wanted to, like everything was pulling me to, I just started to cry instead from pain. So 1 second. She went to the bedroom. No, I was sitting in the couch. I'm sorry. Yeah. So I'm sitting and crying. And instead of responding to what's happening right now, which is external, which is I know this is surface level. Even though this is so painful, even though this is so intense, I know Hashem is here and he caused this fight to happen. I know it's somewhere that's true. So I'm sitting there and thinking to myself, and I said, like, I started crying, and I think I was like minutes before I spoke. I said, Hashem, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Instead of talking and going to my wife, it was shtika, it's silence. And I got a huge chokhmah bomb. I got a huge revelation of wisdom in that moment. Something popped into my brain. That I was wrong.
Right. Your wife could have told you that.
No, but that you can't hear that when you're talking. But not just that I was wrong. What was the source of this happening? Because up until this point, every time we get into this fight, I say to myself, what's wrong with my wife? Yeah, what's wrong? Why is she like? And this time, not only was it not what's wrong with her, but why am I responding like this? Why am I doing this? And I realized what I couldn't realize before because I wasn't silent, was that I'm really insecure. And it was a very big moment for me. And I sat with it and I had a cry of relief now. It was a changing of cry. It wasn't a frustration cry. It was a relief cry. Because I realized if she's able to go to sleep now and she's okay and tomorrow we're going to be fine. So this is not as drastic as I feel right now. But why do I feel like it's so drastic? Because I'm scared she's going to leave me. But we're married and we have kids. Why would I be scared she's going to leave me? Oh, because I'm insecure. And then
Maybe that's what the Lord teaches.
No, yeah, well, whatever. And then I realized, like, okay, so now I can work on that. Every day I can ask Hashem, I'm to believe in myself. And then you get to see the good in the fight. Because there's nothing that would push me to be able to find that point inside of myself if I didn't continuously have the same exact fight with my wife. But the ability to get the wisdom from it was the shtika, it was the silence. To be able to sit there with that.
Is that why a person needs to be thankful to the Shem?
It's partly why, because the thank you is kind of like silence. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like an element of silence.
You're telling him that this is your relative.
Right.
And now but it's the best thing for him.
Right.
And therefore he's complaining.
Yeah.
Is Yemen known for special perfume?
Yes, and so is Yosef. Their mother was Rachel Bushti.
Because Yemen had a whole thing
Sure.
where he was like the epitome of silence because he knew that they saw Yosef and then kill him. Say anything to his dad.
Yeah.
Yaakov was depressed for 22 years and saying
Yosef was also they like Benjamin said, they both were born to Rachel. Rachel was the queen of Shtika. She was the one who was completely silent. That's why she gave birth to Yosef, because he's
she didn't see anything when they're not married.
yeah.
Okay.
Yosef is Chokhmah incarnate. He is like the living physical manifestation of Chokhmah. Shlomo also was the wisest man who ever lived. But in Kabbalah, it's explained that in some ways Yosef was actually the wisest person who ever lived. And Rachel was the one who gave birth to him, meaning silence gave birth to him. Okay. Any questions? You got it? You're silent? Okay. Silence?
I have a
Tshuva.
statement that I want to make.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
How did you start off this class? Can you reenact that?
I'm not going to
You
reenact
said-
it.
no, I'm
Yeah.
saying it all.
Okay.
You started off by saying out of Rabbi story.
Yeah.
What did that story entail? Can you quickly give a quick
The
synopsis?
story again?
Yeah, no, it's just very
Very
briefly, no
quick.
details.
Okay.
Just very brief.
Sure. Rabbi Baruchana is in the desert. In the desert, he sees geese. These geese were so fat that their wings fell off. They had rivers of oil that were running beneath them. Rabbi Baruchana came over to him and said, am I going to taste that fatty chicken over there? Am I going to get some of that Olam Haba? Different animal. No, it was the geese. Sorry, the geese. It says, I'm going to taste some of that in Olam Haba. He lifted his hand, he lifted his feet, and then he gets into a conversation with Rabbi Lazar, and Rabbi Lazar says that they're going to take the accounting for the Jewish people at the end.
When Mashiach is present.
Yeah.
And that's just
Yeah.
a certain scenario happens.
You saw geese.
No, that's besides the point. I happened to see this.
Yeah.
That's not what I want to. Again, nothing's an accident. Everything happens on purpose, right? kid who passed away was gonna happen. I randomly, I don't know how I ended up in Embarassed. See, he was around. I mean, we talked to us in situation. My brother just found out his daughter was diagnosed. I called my dad. So, Dad, this is the situation. Two, with my brother. Can I? Three-way. He's like, okay. Call him. Not answering. Call him back. Not answering. That's all. All of a sudden, my brother goes over there. What does he tell me? He tells me exactly what's happening here. That the animal is gonna take on for the generation itself. So he said, take a white goat, right? He said, take a white goat, put your hand on it,
Smicha.
like smicha.
A white goat?
A white goat. Should be a.
About that.
No, why though? Because it's a kapara. Listen. Because it's a kapara instead of the person passing away. Let this goat be the one to take the hit for you.
It's this parsha.
It's
It's
this
Achrei
parsha.
Moed.
This is Mam Shabbat.
I don't think we do this today, but okay.
Of course we understand.
You don't speak to
Why? Something happened with my nephew also with the exact thing. He said,
it.
take 2,000 something or 1,000 something dollars worth of meat and give it to everybody in there to show us the shit.
So
We
where
did it.
That's not the same. You don't do it. They're not supposed to
He
do
says,
it.
he says, why? It says,
Did it tell you to eat it?
no, don't eat it. He said not to eat it. Just do it.
What's the
Kapara.
level dough at the end?
Yeah, so just do it kapara. So get a goat, kapara. Yeah. Then he said another thing. He said take the amount of her weight times that by 7. Whatever the weight comes out to, whatever pounds for the meat, give it for chicken shots.
Okay.
So, it's not like the whole thing is that you said that when Mashiach is here, that the animals will atone for the. Essentially, have a whole scenario happening today. I'm going to the
Zvat Hashem. It should be a good sign, a good omen for all of us. Okay. Any questions online? No.
I just so 2 things. One,
Yeah.
I wanted to see if you can remind me of the story, but also can you remind me because I want to write this down.
Yeah.
You said silence is the key to this, to wisdom,
Yeah.
to this, to this, to this.
You want to? Okay.
Is there any,
Sure. So in the system of the Sfirot, in the Sfiratic system, there is 10 Sfirot, 10 channels, 10 revelations of godliness. The highest one is called Keter. Keter within your own apparatus of emotions or experiences is that of silence. So when you're silent, you're connected to Keter. Now, Chazal teach, the sages teach that silence is the key to wisdom. And I'm explaining that that's actually explicit in Kabbalah because Keter gives birth to Chokhmah. Silence gives birth to wisdom. Okay? Silence gives birth to wisdom. Keter gives birth to Chokhmah because Keter is the crown. The crown is above the head. What does it mean? It's something above consciousness. So I cannot understand that. That's the crown. That's why Rabbi Nachman says that who's going to crown the Mashiach? The simple Jews who say Tehillim every day. Why are they going to crown the Mashiach? Because they're simple. Because they're simple, they can access the crown. It's beyond understanding. It doesn't make sense to say Tehillim every day, to sit there and every day and say Tehillim. Go to work, go do something, go help yourself, go learn something. But you sit there every day, you're saying Tehillim because you're simple. But you're going to crown the Mashiach.
You know what's funny? You've been saying this, and there's a book that says guard your tongue. It's funny.
Yes, check it. No, I'm just kidding. Someone actually today just told me, I was like, what are you doing? He said, I'm going to get the book, go guard your tongue. Interesting. Okay. So
Thursday night of Israel.
Thursday night. Yes.
This is your last class on Thursday night.
Yes,
Can we have a piece of party for you?
that's cute. Can you get me in one of those hats with the what is it, the string on the side?
I think we have like something more.
Like some beer. Was it
We have the class.
No. It's fine. Thursday. Okay, Thursday. Bezrat Hashem. Thursday we'll do the class. You still gonna be here then? You coming?
We're still doing
Yes.
We're still doing a lot of mouths.
Yeah.
Where you going to this one?
Where are we having it?
Mike's gonna figure it out.
Why it's so much cheaper to do it?
Okay. Everybody have an amazing night.